Hello everyone, good afternoon and welcome to Trolechaim with me, Rabbi Anibal Mas. I will be your host today and the teacher of this class. So welcome to the classroom, to this virtual classroom, and hopefully we'll have a nice moment studying a little bit. Today we are not going to study the Torah portion, not this week. I decided that it will be good if we start studying about Purim, which is the next holiday. And so you will have a little bit of time to prepare properly for the holiday of Purim that is going to be mid-March. Okay? There are certain things that you have to plan ahead. So if it's good if we can start studying right now, so you will be totally prepared for Purim. When is Purim actually? Well, it's Wednesday, March 16th in the evening. But there, as we are going to see very soon, there are certain things that you will have to do in advance to be sure that you are totally prepared for Purim. Judy Sharak is here, the first one using the chat. Good for you, Judy, and thank you and welcome to the class. I will highlight it here. Here's Judy. Very good. I want to know who else is here. I see the numbers of my screen. I mean, combined from YouTube and Facebook. But I want to know your names. I want to know that. I want to be sure that you are there. As you can see, I'm still experimenting with moving backgrounds. I hope it's not making you dizzy. Don't worry. Once we start with the class itself, the background is gone. And I'm going to be immersed on the texts that we are going to study on this class. Okay, so who else is there? Come on, it can't be just Judy. I know that we have at least a dozen people connected, but I want to know who you are. Say hello. Say hello so we can all know that you are here. And I know that I'm talking to people and not just to a number that is showing up on my screen. Randy is here. Hello, Randy. Welcome to the class. Welcome. So as I say, Purim today. I hope you have already plans to do something for Purim, and you know that there are many different events this year. It's going to be some online, some in person. Now that things start slowly opening, but the good thing is many places as Shari Zedek, for example, we decided to keep the online component regardless, right? Even if we are totally open for people in person, we are still going to always leave the online option. So yeah, we can always be connected. Holly's here. Hello, Holly. Welcome to the class. I will say tears with Randy. Now with Holly, you see? I can put your name on the stream. Yeah, we are going to do it always. This is what is called the hybrid world, which, by the way, we've been doing hybrid stuff at the Shari Zedek way before the pandemic. That's why we were so prepared when COVID hit, because we kind of had a head start from before. I used to teach, for example, I remember the conversion class, what we call it choosing Judaism, from at least 12-15 years ago, that I used to do a hybrid model. So I have people in the classroom and people connecting from other sides, because you never know what your students are. Maybe they are traveling, maybe they are connecting from a different city altogether. And I used to have a screen on the classroom, so the students in person could see the person connected on the other side, and vice versa. It was very interesting. And back then we used to use Skype. Remember Skype? Nobody uses Skype anymore. Everything seems to be Zoom in these days, except there is a TV channel in Winnipeg, CTV, that once in a while they invite me to talk about the holidays or other events, and they still use Skype for their guests. So I have to go and download Skype to connect with them. They use Skype. Okay, so now that we are here, we are going to start studying about Purim. Okay, so let me bring the first slide just here. Purim is celebrated on the 14th day of the Hebrew month of Adar. Okay, but since the year 5782 is a leap year, that means that we have 2 months of Adar. So there are 13 months in this year, in the year 5782. Okay, so since 5782 is a leap year, it's celebrated on Adar 2nd. Okay, so Purim is always celebrated on the 14th of Adar, but if there are 2 months of Adar, it's celebrated on the 2nd month of Adar, because it has to be always the same distance between Purim and Pesach and Passover. So if you celebrate on Purim the 1st, it will be too long of the wait between the two, and the rabbi wanted to keep it connected, so it was moved to Adar 2nd. Okay, why do we do that? Very easily. I can answer that very easily. And it's because the book of Esther says so. Why the book of Esther? Because everything that we celebrate on Purim, everything that we are celebrating on Purim, is based on the book of Esther. The book of Esther is a book that you can find in any Bible. It's part of the Hebrew Bible. And if you go in book of Esther chapter 9, verses 20 to 22, says the following. Mordecai, who was Mordecai? He was one of the heroes of the story. We're going to talk about the characters in a minute, okay? Mordecai recorded these events and sent letters to all the Jews in the provinces of King Ahasuerus, both near and far, instructing them to observe, drum rolls, the 14th day of the month of Adar. Here you go. And the 15th day, we're going to just hold on, because we don't celebrate the 15th. But how come it says 15th there? We'll see in a minute. So every year. So it means that this guy, Mordecai, created a new holiday. And he said, hey, you have to celebrate on the 14th of Adar, but not just this year, every year, to commemorate the days on which the Jews obtained rest from their enemies, and the month which for them was turned from sorrow into gladness, and from mourning into a holiday. They were to make them days of celebrating and rejoicing, sending portions to each other and giving gifts to the poor. Even with this couple of verses, we learn so much about what we do in Purim. And we are going to do step by step of many of the things that I just read for you. Okay? Number one, I already mentioned, is the date. We learn from this text that it has to be celebrated on the 14th of Adar. The 15th is celebrated only on walled cities. So if you happen to live in a city that is surrounded by a wall, like for example the old city of Jerusalem, and there are some European cities that they still have walls, the rabbis decided if that's the case, then you have to celebrate on the 15th as well, and it's called Shushan Purim. But we don't do it here in the diaspora most places. So that's why you probably are not familiar at all with that concept. I've never been in a walled city except for Jerusalem. So I never had the opportunity to celebrate the 15th of Adar as well. Okay? So we learn from here. We celebrate on the 14th of Adar. Why we do that? Well, because something very bad was planned. Remember the story by Haman. Haman was the evil character of the story. Haman planned to destroy, to obliterate the Jewish people on the 14th of Adar, but God had different plans. So instead of being a day of doom for us, it became a day of gladness, day of joy, because instead of dying, we became the victors of a fight against the anti-Semites of the kingdom of Persia. And because of that, we celebrate this date. So in other words, Mordecai said, guys, remember what happened to us in the 14th day of Adar. How there was this people that they tried to kill us, but not only they couldn't, we overpowered them and we got rid of them. So this is something to celebrate. And then he said, how do we celebrate this? Well, two things that we do in Purim, and we are going to study the details in a little bit. And is we send portions to each other. You know how to say this in Hebrew? Mishloach manot. It's one of the things we do in Purim. And the other thing, we giving gifts to the poor, and that is matanot, la evyonim. The other thing that we do, it doesn't say it here, it's another verse, we read the entire book of Esther as part of the celebration of Purim. Okay, we're going to study that. But why did I say that we need to study this in advance? Because I could have waited a couple of weeks and to teach you all this just the Thursday before Purim. Why did I decide to do it right now? Well, it's a good question, and I'm going to explain. What happened is that this Saturday is Mevarchim HaChodesh, which means that this Saturday we're going to announce the beginning of the month of Adar 2. And there is something that we have to do during Adar and before Purim. And that is to give the half shekel. So I'm going to ask a question to all of you there. Have you ever heard about the half shekel? I will give you a second. I want to know if you ever heard about the tradition of the half shekel before Purim. Nope, nothing. Have you ever heard? If you didn't hear about the half shekel, just type no. Okay? But I want to know because it's not a common knowledge, but it's a very meaningful mitzvah. And you see, let me read it first. Meanwhile, you have more time for all of you guys to type there in the chat. Remember, we are on YouTube and Facebook. So if you type in the chat on YouTube or in the chat of Facebook, I can read it from my computer. I can put the two together. And if you're new to the class, remember to subscribe because we have wonderful stuff that we either go live or we upload to our channels. So if you're subscribed, and on top of that, if you hit the bell, you will be notified every time we do that. So you won't miss a bit of what we do at the Shari Zedek. Jerome Famin is here. Welcome, Jerome. And he said no. Okay, half shekel. Let me read this and they will explain how it works. Because it's something I got used to do it, but then I realized not many people hear about it. Half shekel. On the eve of Purim, actually it's not necessarily on the eve of Purim. It is that you have all the way between the beginning of Adar, that's why I wanted to teach you this today, the beginning of Adar until the eve of Purim. You have all that time to give this. Holly, you said, yeah, half shekel for the census. Yeah, and Randy, you said, your lesson talk about saying and rich and poor can give equally. Yeah. So, but that is because we don't do that anymore. We still have the mitzvah to give half shekel every year. The temple doesn't exist anymore, right? So we are going to see that even the language that we use, we have to be very careful how we talk about this. But because the temple doesn't exist anymore, the rabbis decided that we still have to donate the half shekel, but not necessarily for the purpose of a census or for the purpose of bringing it to the temple. It kind of evolved into something else, okay? But it's still the tradition to do it, to give this half shekel, regardless temple or not temple, every year between the beginning of Adar until Purim. Mostly from Adar the 2nd until Purim. Okay? So that means that as soon as Adar 2nd start, at Ansheni, you have to try to give this half shekel to charity in a way that we are going to study in a minute. Okay? But very good. Holly and Randy, you remember. Very nice. I love when the students remember the contents of the class. Makes me feel that you guys are paying attention. That's great. So let me read. On the eve of Purim, or again, from the beginning of Adar until the eve of Purim, there is a custom to give 3 coins to charity, a commemoration to the half shekel donated annually to the temple treasury during Adar. Okay? 3 coins are given because in the Torah portion dealing with the half shekel, right? We study about that. The word terumah, donation, appears 3 times. Howard Haimovich, welcome to the class. And you heard about the half shekel. Okay, very good. Now, and I have a question for all of you. This is, it's almost like this is trivia night. Oh, the half shekel. It said 3 coins. Do you have to give 3 half shekels? Or you have to split half shekel into 3 coins? What do you think? What do you think? Well, I will tell you the answer. Actually, you have to donate the equivalent in money of the half shekel. We're going to see how much is that. And you have to try to split it into 3 into 3 coins or 3 bills. But the total, 3 half shekels? No, it has to be actually, you can give half shekel split into 3 coins. So let's say, for example, that half shekel, and it's a different number. Let's say that half shekel is $1, the equivalent. Okay. So what you do is you give one. If your country has something like 50 cents and then 2 quarters, and then you have 3 coins. When you give, that's a traditional way of doing it. Of course, you can also give 3 half shekels. That will be fine as well. But once we start studying how much is the half shekel in these days, the biblical half shekel, you will see that it's a substantial amount in these days. Okay? We'll see that in a minute. Now, I mentioned before that we have to be very careful the language we use when we talk about the half shekel. Why? Well, just remember this first. Don't call this sum the half shekel. So when you go and donate, don't say it, here I bring my half shekel. That's wrong language. Why? The poskim, halacha experts. Okay? So if you ever hear the word poskim or posek is singular. A posek is an expert on halacha in Jewish law that sometimes will tell you what to do based on knowledge of halacha. So when you read such documents, well, and the rabbis who write that are called the poskim. Okay, just for I want you to get familiar with these words that they are going to be very common when you read about Jewish law and halacha. So remember, poskim are the experts on halacha. So the poskim write that nowadays one should be careful not to call this sum of money the half shekel. Rather, pay attention, a commemoration of the half shekel. So basically you go and donate and said, hey, I want to donate this as a commemoration for the half shekel. Okay? Why? For if one would call it the former, it means that if you come and said, here is my donation of a half shekel, there is concern that this money may be consecrated to the Beit HaMikdash and thus be prohibited to benefit from, thereby prohibiting its distribution to the poor. This is what happened. And again, this is Jewish law, so you have to be very careful. If you go, let's say, to a synagogue and you said, hi, I want to donate this half shekel to you. If you say that, if you use that word according to Jewish law, what the synagogue has to do is to keep that money in a safe place until one day we have the third temple. One day we have the sacrifices in Jerusalem again, and then all that money could be used back in the temple. Because if you say, here is my half shekel, that money has to be put in a safe place until you can use it at the temple, as the half shekel mentioned in the Bible. But I mentioned before, the half shekel we bring in these days is more like a tradition. It's just to remember that we used to bring the half shekel at the times of the temple. So when you donate, when you go specifically, if you say anything, you will say, hey, here is this money as a commemoration for the half shekel. So you can give it to the poor if you want. Understand? This is something about Jewish law that we have to be very careful with the language we use. Okay? Now, let's talk about the amount of money that we donate. Okay? And for that, let's go all the way to the ruling of Rabbi Saadia Gaon. He said the following: what is the amount one should donate in commemoration of the half shekel? You see how he uses the word commemoration there? Randy, you said inflation-based amount. Oh, you're actually right. Let me highlight this because this is very important. I want everybody to read what Randy wrote here. Inflation-based amount, especially if shekels were gold. By the way, shekels were silver. You were close. Were silver. Okay? But you're absolutely right, and we are going to deal with that in this class. Good point, Randy. So, back to Saadia Gaon. What is the amount one should donate in commemoration of the half shekel? Well, the actual half shekel coin amounted to the weight of 9 grams of pure silver. However, if one's financial situation does not allow one to donate this amount, donating any coin in commemoration of the half shekel is sufficient. Remember, I told you that this is a tradition. It's not the actual half shekel that used to be donated at the temple. So if you can match that amount, great. If not, anything you donate, because it's a commemoration, will be fine. So it's interesting that even back in the day, in the year 800, in the year 900, he said, women must also donate money in commemoration of the half shekel, and it is proper for one to donate this amount for one's small children as well. Some have the custom to donate this amount for the unborn babies as well. So even pregnant women will go and donate it twice, one for themselves, one for the unborn children. Very interesting. Okay, so Saadia Gaon already mentioned that the half shekel is 9 grams of pure silver. So, how do we deal with this in these days? It's very easy. You can actually easily calculate how much this is, right? So, for example, I went to the ruling now to Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, with very famous Israeli rabbi. So he said the way to calculate this sum is as follows. A troy ounce of silver consists of 31.1 grams. Thus, the price of 1 troy ounce of silver is $24.12 US on February 23rd. So yesterday I went and calculated this. I went to the website and I put this number together for you guys. Okay? So then must be divided by 31.1 and then multiplied by 9 in order to find the updated price for 9 grams of silver, which is the value of the actual half shekel coin. So how much is 1 shekel coin in these days? $0.77 US. Actually, that was yesterday. You can go and do it whenever you want to donate. You can go to the website and do exactly the same numbers that I did for you. And you will know exactly how much to give if you actually want to give exactly half shekel. Okay? So, but let's continue. There is a disagreement among the poskim, you already know this word by now, the poskim, whether or not the price per ounce of silver should be calculated including applicable sales tax. It's amazing. Halachically speaking, Rabbi Ovadia instructed that one may be lenient and calculate this sum excluding tax. I added that afterwards. I should actually put brackets because this is something that I added, not his words. So because he said, this is something that you should know about halacha, about Jewish law, that when something comes directly from the Torah, when we are trying to fulfill a biblical commandment, which is called deoraita, if there is a disagreement, rabbis always follow the more stringent approach. When something is rabbinical or something is minhag, which is a tradition, and there is a disagreement because it's not from the Torah, it's rabbinic, or it's a tradition, we always follow the more lenient approach. So in this case, when the rabbi said, should we add tax or not, because it's not from the Torah, because it's not the actual half shekel, it's a tradition based on the biblical half shekel. So the rabbi said, no, it does not include tax, because when there is a disagreement for a non-biblical law, we have the tradition to always follow the more lenient approach. That's what you have to do whenever you want to donate the half shekel. If you want, go and check how much the actual price of silver it is, and you're going to donate 0.77 US dollars to a synagogue. Usually we donate it to a synagogue. And remember, you do it for you and for your family and every member of your household. Okay? So also this one, I wanted to keep it clear. The minimum amount of the donation for the commemoration of the half shekel is the value of a coin, which is half of the local currency. So again, if you don't want to do the silver thing, the minimum amount is half of a value of a coin. Okay? For example, in the United States and Canada, this should be $50 coin. Okay? Hence, the donation should equal 50 cents. So in these days, the more lenient approach is, if before Purim you donate 50 cents to charity, you fulfilled with the rabbinic law of the commemoration of the half shekel. It's better if you do it in the way of giving 3 coins. For example, if you want to do the 77, for example, it's just give 3 quarters, which is 75 cents, is very close. So if you give 3 quarters, that equals approximately the half shekel. And because you're giving it with 3 coins, you fulfill the thing that it has to be given into 3, split into 3 coins, because the word teruma appears 3 times. Is that clear? I hope it is. If you have any questions, please type it in the chat. I will give you a minute before we move on to the next topic for this. Because now we need to start studying specifically about Purim. Okay? So, okay. If you want to ask a question, I will stop the next thing and I will answer. Let's talk more about Purim. The first thing you have to do before you celebrate Purim, on the eve of Purim, is to fast. We fast the whole day before Purim, from dawn to nightfall, and it's going to be this year on Wednesday, March 16. So from the morning till the evening, you don't eat or drink. So basically the first thing you're going to eat is going to be the Purim meal. The first one. You will see that there are actually 2 big meals on Purim. One is the one at the night, but the more interesting one is the one that goes during the day, and it's supposed to be on Thursday all day long, that we eat and drink. Okay, why do we do this? Why do we fast the day before Purim? Surprise, surprise, because it's in the book of Esther. Book of Esther, chapter 4, verses 15 to 17 says, Esther had then returned this answer to Mordecai. Go, assemble all the Jews to be found in Shushan, and have them fast for me, neither eating nor drinking for 3 days. She said 3 days. We do it for only 1 day. Don't worry, guys. Night and day. Also, I and the girls attending me will fast the same way. Then I will go to the king, which is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. Then Mordecai went his way and did everything Esther had ordered him to do. So what happened here? Let me give you a summary of the book of Esther if you are not familiar with it. What happened is the evil Haman wanted to destroy the Jewish people, but the plot was known by Mordecai. Mordecai told that to Esther, and Mordecai said to Esther, Esther, go tell everything to the king because you're Jewish. So if Haman wants to kill all the Jews, he will have to kill you as well. But hey, you're a king, you're a queen. So go tell the king, hey, Haman wants to kill your queen, right? So Esther said, well, there is one problem, that I cannot go to see the king unless he is calling me. See, back in the day, you just couldn't knock at the door of the king. That didn't work that way. The king has to call you. So Esther said, if I go there unannounced, if he doesn't invite me, the law of Persia is that I have to be put to death unless the king actually feels mercy towards me, and he needs to lift his scepter, his golden scepter. So if the king, when you go unannounced to see the king, if the king sees you and the king lifts his golden scepter, that means that it's all good. The king will see you. But if the king does not do that, then you will be killed on the spot. Persian law. Who am I to argue that? That's the way it used to be. Thank God it's not like that anymore. But according to the book, it looks like that the way it used to be. So Esther said to Mordecai, I can't go like that. But he said, but maybe there is something we can do. Why don't you guys fast for 3 days? Well, in this context, you have to understand that the fasting that Esther is implying is a fast accompanied by prayers. So in order, basically what he said, go fast for 3 days, pray for me for 3 days. And then after these 3 days of prayers, of intense prayers, I'm going to go to see the king, and maybe your prayers will be answered, and he's going to raise his golden scepter, and I want to be able to speak to the king and to let him know that Haman wants to kill all the Jews. Now, the interesting thing here is that the word prayer is nowhere to be found. In fact, the word God is nowhere to be found in the book of Esther. It's a book that is in the Bible, but it does not contain the name of God. And it does not contain anything religious at all. And you could argue, yeah, but why else would they fast if it's not as a spiritual experience? Well, good point, but it doesn't say so. Why wouldn't it say explicitly that they are fasting as part of their spiritual experience, as part of praying to God for the life of Esther? Why don't say it? Because the whole book of Esther, as we are going to see, is a book in which everything related to God and the way God relates to us is hidden purposely. It's not that it's not there, it's just it's not there explicitly. In the same way that they say, what do you mean they didn't pray? Of course they prayed. It says that they fasted for 3 days. Well, again, we know that they prayed because that's why they fasted. We know, but the word prayer is not there. So the same way that we know that they prayed because it's mentioning fasting, in the same way we know that God is there based on the events that happened. Because we said, how else we will have this so carefully chosen events unless that it was God's plan from the beginning? I guess the alternative will say, well, it was just a coincidence. It was random. Could it be that it was random? And I guess it could. But the whole idea of the book of Esther is to let us know that there is no such thing. There is always a hidden plan, a hidden divine plan, something that we cannot see. Not explicitly, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. like the book of Esther, if you know where to look for it, you will be able to see it. In the same way that we know that they pray because it's talking about the fasting, even though the word prayer is not there. So this is something that is unique of the book of Esther. The fact that we have to learn to find God in different ways. I would actually say that it's all the opposite from Pesach. Passover is all the opposite. During Pesach and all the events, all that before Pesach, all the 10 plagues, the split of the Red Sea, all that. Can you find in the Bible anything more explicit than that? Of course not. It's amazing. So Purim is all hidden, Pesach is all revealed, it's all explicit. It's a contrast, but again, two sides of the same coin. Hopefully we'll talk more about that when we go to Pesach, the day that we study Pesach. Okay, so again, remember, one thing you have to do if you want to prepare Purim properly, fast the day before. Next, what else we do? We read the Megillah, the scroll of Esther. And it goes like this. The scroll of Esther, the Megillah, is read on Purim night, Wednesday, March 16, 2022, and again the next day in the morning, Thursday, March 17, 2022. We read it in the synagogue because the larger the crowd, the greater publicity is given to the miracle of our being saved. Why did the rabbi have to say this? Because you can say, well, I don't have to go to the synagogue. I can just buy a book of Esther and read it at home. Can I do that? Ooh, yeah. I guess you could, but it's better if you do it in a synagogue, because the whole idea is to remember that we as a nation were saved. So why would you do it at home? Is when everything that happened in the Megillah is talking about the unity of the Jewish people, how together they were. So go to the synagogue, okay? So that's why if you can, you should always join a minyan for Purim. In these days, I will say either in person or online, but it's very important that you join a minyan. So start preparing in advance. Start thinking where you're gonna go for Purim. Next, the entire Megillah at the synagogue must be read from a kosher scroll, written with proper ink on kosher parchment, etc. Every word must be clearly heard. And this is very important. This is very important, okay? Why would the rabbi say every word must be clearly heard? Because of one interesting tradition that we have in Purim. The custom is to make noise at the mention of Haman's name. Okay? So every time the reader will say Haman, everybody will go boo, boo, and then we'll have the groggers and make noise. But the tradition is that the noise has to stop before the reader continues, because then some of the words won't be clearly heard by the crowd. So that's why the halakha, Jewish law, said every word must be clearly heard. So be careful with the noise, otherwise people won't hear the reading. So again, the custom is to make noise at the mention of Haman's name, in keeping with the command to wipe out the remembrance of Amalek. Okay? Similarly, the Shabbat before Purim, Saturday, March 12th, 2022, is called Shabbat Zachor, because the Maftir portion, the last Torah reading, features the command to remember Zecher Amalek. Okay? So that's another thing that if you want to, this is when the preparation really starts. So you have to go to synagogue, or you have to try to make it to synagogue, to Saturday, March 12th, to listen to the Maftir that is going to remind us of the evil Amalek. Amalek was a nation that tried to destroy the Jewish people. Amalek became a synonym of the anti-Semite. So in these days, when we know somebody that is like a hardcore anti-Semite, we call him or her a Nazi, right? Right? We call it a Nazi. But some people forgot that before the Nazis were a thing, anti-Semites used to be called Amalekites. Ah, you're an Amalekite. That means you're an anti-Semite. Anti-Semite. This is we call it Nazis. Back in the day, people used to be called Amalekite. Peter Petrenko, welcome. Yeah. Let me highlight this because it's very important. Haman was an Agagite, descendant of King Agag, the Amalekite, enemy of Israel. So yeah, actually the book of Esther clearly connects Haman with Amalek. So that's why we read the Shabbat before Purim, the Torah portion saying that we have to remember what Amalek did to the Jewish people. Never forget what Amalek did to you. Same language that we use for the Holocaust. That's it. Never forget the Holocaust. Remember and never forget. So this is the same. Remember what Amalek did. And remember just in time for Purim. So you will connect the dots of what happened in Purim in a different way. If you remember historically that it was always an Amalek trying to destroy the Jewish people. Oh, Amalek in the Bible is a perfect example of how sometimes anti-Semites think. And I don't want to say too much because there is a bat mitzvah on March 12th, and she is going to be talking about this. Okay? That will be her Dvar Torah. So I hope you can make it and you will enjoy that as part of the service. So remember, we read the Megillah on the night of Purim and then the day of Purim. What are the things we do? Mishloach manot. I mentioned that at the very beginning. Sending food to friends. Sending food to friends. Okay? On the day of Purim, Thursday, March 17th, 2022, we send 2 items of food to at least one person. Why? Because the word manot, mishloach means to send. Manot is plural. It's plural. So because the word is plural, it means that more than one item. Okay? That's it. That's why it's because basically the English will be send items. Okay? That's why the tradition is if we send food, usually it's a baggie, and you will put a couple of things, at least 2 things. It's preferable to send ready to eat foods or drinks. The food should be of a respectable quantity according to the standards of the sender and recipient. The reason for this mitzvah is to ensure that everyone has sufficient food for the Purim feast. More to the point, this increases love and friendship between people, providing an ideal opportunity to embrace our fellow Jews, irrespective of any religious or social differences. After all, Haman did not discriminate amongst us. For this reason, it is particularly good to give gifts to those who you may have had an argument with, or someone new in the community who needs a new friend. So this Mishloach Manot is not charity. Because when we give charity, we don't discriminate if it's a Jew or non-Jew receiving charity. This one, because the original idea of sending food during Purim was for other people celebrating Purim, so they will have more food to eat. The tradition became, this is something that you will do to another Jew, because non-Jews usually don't celebrate Purim. Unless you know someone who would like to celebrate Purim, then you offer some food in the form of the Mishloach Manot. But that's the whole idea, sending food to friends, okay? To celebrate Purim, to observe the commandment of the Purim feast. The other thing mentioned in the Megillah on Esther that we do, remember, is the Matanot LaEvyonim, gifts to the poor. So again, on the day of Purim, we continue things that we do the day of Purim. Thursday, March 17th, 2022. It is also a special mitzvah to give money to at least 2 poor people. Why? To at least 2. Again, because of the way it's written. It says matanot. plural, gifts. But then it says la evionim. And this is where English language sometimes it plays against us. Because the word poor doesn't have a plural, right? But it basically will be gifts to the poor. You have to imagine that there is an S at the end because evionim is plural in Hebrew. So give to the multiple poor. So because it's plural, you have to give money to at least 2 poor people to fulfill with a mitzvah based on the way it's written. Each poor person should be given at least the amount of food that is usually eaten at a regular meal or the amount of money required to buy this. If you do not know who is qualified to receive the gifts, then give the money to an authorized charity collector who will distribute the money on Purim for the purpose of fulfilling this mitzvah. It is better to spend more on gift to the poor, Martanot La'evionim, than on Mishloach Manot. There is no greater joy than gladdening the hearts of orphan widows and poor people. The Jewish people are one unit. We can't possibly enjoy the holiday if poor people don't have enough. So basically, this is something that we have consistently on all the holidays, major holidays, minor holidays. Every time that there is food involved in our celebration, which is pretty much everything except for Yom Kippur, the tradition is to give money to a poor so that person, regardless of who that person is, could also have more food that day. That's the idea. And as I mentioned, the other mitzvah of Purim is the Purim meal. Right? The day's grand finale is the festive meal. The Purim Seudah feast should begin during the daytime and extend until after dark. This is a little different from other holidays. Other holidays, the big meal is always on the eve. For Purim, the big meal is during the day and it extends all day long. Okay? It's a little bit different. Remember that. And then the other thing that is traditional, you may have heard of this one. It's coming from the Talmud. And Rabbi said, a man must become so intoxicated on Purim that he cannot tell the difference between cursed be Haman and blessed be Mordechai. In other words, it is traditional to drink quite a bit on Purim. Again, it's just until you see you have to be aware of your limit. Because you drink until you're a little dizzy, so you don't understand the difference between the cursed and blessed. In the sense that, remember what I mentioned before, the name of God be hidden and things that's the way life is. That many times what we believe is a blessing, when we believe is a blessing, at the end of the day may be a curse. And what we believe is a curse today, after a while we look back and say, well, maybe that was a blessing. So sometimes the line between curse and blessings are blurred. So on Purim, we almost replicate that. We almost replicate that in the sense that we drink a little bit. So we are at that state when we don't know what is a curse and what is a blessing. And when you are at that point, then all what you can do is to trust in God. If there is a master plan, then I trust God. I won't even try to say if this is a curse or if it's a blessing. I just trust God's master plan. That's the thing. Now, the other thing we do, and if you ever came to the synagogue for Purim, you probably saw it, is the masquerading. Masquerading. You see, way before Corona, we used to wear masks on Purim. So, it is a way to emulating God who was disguised who disguised his presence behind the natural events described in the Purim story, and has remained concealed, yet ever present, in Jewish history since the times of the destruction of the first temple. Since charity is a central feature of the day, right, even for the Half Shekel and the Matanot La'evionim and blah, 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 when givers and or recipients disguise themselves, this allows greater anonymity, thus preserving the dignity of the recipient. So this is something that if you ever study Maimonides, he will explain that the highest level of charity is when you don't know who is the recipient of your money, and the recipient doesn't know who is the giver. That's what it means. So Persian exile throughout the Purim story, and since hides behind a lot the hidden aspect of the miracle of Purim, which was disguised by natural events. So again, the presence of God was disguised. It's up to us to discover it. But there is nothing closer to real life. And when I say real life, is the way we perceive life than the book of Esther. The book of Esther is the closest thing we have to the way we live our lives. In the sense that the God we experience these days is not the God mentioned in the Bible, for example, at the time of the Exodus of Egypt, or the time of the revelation on Sinai. We don't have those kind of explicit and big miracles anymore. When I said big miracles, it is, we do have miracles, but not the kind of miracles that nobody can argue. You know what I mean? You can be one, like I do sometimes, that you believe in miracles, you can see it, and you don't understand how other people can't see it, but they can't. So what do you mean? This is a miracle. And the other person said, I don't think that's a miracle. I think that was a coincidence. Because we live in a world where the presence of God, the hand of God, is hidden. So if you are one of those people who knows how to see the hand of God behind the veil, you're blessed. But then you can probably understand why there are other people that they cannot see it the same way. But the rabbis would say that if you can take a time travel machine and go back all the way to the times of the Exodus of Egypt, those people experience miracle in a way that nobody could say, oh, I didn't see it, I don't believe it, because they were that explicit. That's not Purim. That's not Purim, unfortunately. Purim is a perfect book for us because it relates to us. Purim sees the world the way we see the world. That is up to the individual to find God present in the story, because God is not going to be explicit for everybody to see. Is that clear? That's what it is. So that's why the masks on Purim, right? Because it's the same. When people wear masks, if you're close to the person, you still recognize the person behind the mask. It never happened to you. I never understood the thing, when you see all these characters or the superheroes that nobody recognizes who they are, and you probably thought, come on, if Clark Kent were my friend, I will easily know that he's Superman, right? What do you mean they don't recognize it? Well, if you're close to a person, you recognize them even if they're wearing a mask. Same happened with God. If you're close to God, then you will recognize God even if God is wearing a mask. That's the thing. Jerome Feldman said yes, and yet they rebelled several times afterwards. Yes, and that is something we don't have time to study about that today. But you have to remember that the explicit God is not necessarily a good thing, because every time that God was explicitly present, then we have episodes like Jerome mentioned here, that people experiencing that rebelled against God. But we are not going to say that now. Okay, let's continue. What other thing we do in Purim? Traditional food. It wouldn't be a holiday if it's not for food. On Purim, triangular pastries called hamantashen, poppy seed pockets, or oznei yaman, Haman's ears, are served. A sweet pastry dough is rolled out, cut into circles, and traditionally filled with prune or poppy seed filling. When wrapped up into triangular shape with the filling either hidden or showing. Another thing, hidden, filling, and thing is all part of the same topic. And I want to say one more thing, and it's about the name of Esther, which was the queen, right? Why Esther? Why would her name will be Esther in a book that does not contain the name of God? Well, because there is a verse in the book of Deuteronomy, in the Torah, that God said to the Jewish people. Va'anochi haster astir panai bayom ha'u. God said, but I will be hiding my face from them because of all the evil that they will have done in turning to other gods. Now look at this. Look at this. The verse in the Torah that says that God is going to hide his face, so in other words, that we won't be able to see God explicitly anymore, the verse that says that, what word is the verse using? Haster astir, which is the same spelling of the word Esther mentioned in the book of Esther. So is it a coincidence that a book called Esther is telling a story where God is hiding his face? Being the word Esther, the word used in the Torah, at the verse that said that God is going to hide his face, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's all connected, and the message for us, and something that we have to learn on Purim, is that the whole idea of the holiday of the festival of Purim is to learn to find the presence of God in the everyday life. God is not explicit anymore. Many people will tell you that there is no such a thing of God, that there is no such a thing of God's plan, or many things. Why? Because unless somebody, I guess, show you how to find God in life, you won't see it either. Purim is that opportunity when we learn by reading the book of Esther to find God in everyday life. Well, I hope you learned something new today. I hope you feel that you're a little bit better prepared to celebrate Purim this year. And remember, Half Shekel. You have all the way until the eve of Purim to make this donation. And you remember, you don't say, here I come to donate my Half Shekel. What you say is, I'm coming to donate this money in remembrance of the Half Shekel. Even if you give it to somebody, this is in remembrance of the Half Shekel. And then you're fulfilling another mitzvah, an easy one to fulfill. So thank you everyone for tuning in today. Remember, this class is going to be rebroadcasted tonight at 8 p.m. Central Time. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, do so. Just hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to give the thumbs up. You can share this class with other people. That actually helps a lot of the channel if you share this class. And if you are subscribing, remember to hit the bell so you will be notified every time we go live or every time we upload something to our channels. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe. Hope to see you soon. Bye, everyone.